Don't say a word. The whisper, laced with venom, cut through the mahogany-scented air. Elena froze, coffee pot trembling. Billion-dollar deal on the line. Tech patents about to vanish into thin air. But here's the kicker. They think she's just a waitress, a nobody. They don't see the fluency simmering beneath her quiet demeanor, the Arabic swirling around the contract's deceitful core. Rage coiled in her gut, a low hum against the injustice. This isn't about coffee refills anymore. This is about survival, and they have no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. The mahogany conference table gleamed under crystal chandeliers as Marcus Sterling reviewed the most important contract of his 28-year life. Sterling Tech's Manhattan headquarters buzzed with anticipation. This deal with the Alzar Investment Group could transform his artificial intelligence startup into a global powerhouse worth $12 billion. The Arab investors are offering unprecedented terms, announced his business partner, David Chen, sliding documents across polished wood. Full funding for our military AI contracts, plus international expansion rights. It's everything we've dreamed of. Marcus studied the Arabic and English text, his steel gray eyes, scanning numbers that represented 5 years of 18-hour days and sleepless nights. At 28, he'd already revolutionized predictive AI technology, but this partnership would make him one of the youngest tech billionaires in America. Sheikh Omar Al-Zara specifically requested today's signing. David continued, his plane leaves for Dubai tonight, so we need final approval within the hour. The conference room door opened quietly, and Elena Martinez entered with practiced invisibility. She'd perfected the art of being unnoticed during her 8 months serving Sterling Tech's executive meetings, moving like a shadow in her black server's uniform. Her dark hair was pulled back professionally, and she kept her eyes downcast as she arranged the afternoon refreshments. Marcus barely glanced up from the contract. Coffee, Elena, and make sure those pastries are fresh. We're hosting some very important people today. Elena's movements faltered slightly as she caught sight of the contract's header. Her fluency in Arabic, gained from years working in international finance, allowed her to read the document title that made her blood run cold. She continued arranging items with steady hands, but her mind raced. Of course, Mr. Sterling, she replied softly, her voice carrying the faintest trace of an accent that most people assumed was Mexican, rather than the result of her multilingual education. As she poured coffee, Elena positioned herself to overhear David's phone conversation with their legal team. Her ability to understand Mandarin, Arabic, French, German, Spanish, and English had proven invaluable in her previous career. And now it might save Marcus from making the biggest mistake of his life. The contracts look standard, David was saying in Mandarin to their Chinese-American lawyer, assuming privacy. But I want you to review paragraph 12, 3 once more. Something about the subsidiary clauses fields. Elena's heart stopped. Paragraph 12. 3 was exactly what she'd been worried about when she saw the Arabic header. She'd seen identical language destroy other American companies. Careful with that coffee, Marcus said sharply as Elena's hand trembled slightly. These documents are irreplaceable. Elena steadied herself, meeting his gaze directly for the first time in months. My apologies, Mr. Sterling. The contracts appear quite complex. Something in her tone made Marcus pause. Elena had served hundreds of meetings, always silent and efficient. Why was she making conversation now? They're fairly straightforward, Marcus replied, studying her face. Standard international investment agreements. Elena finished pouring coffee, her mind working frantically. She needed to warn him. But how could a simple Garanette possibly know enough about international law to identify contract fraud? Will the Arab investors be joining you soon? She asked carefully. David checked his watch. Sheikh Omar's team should arrive any moment. This is the biggest deal in Sterling Tech's history. Elena nodded, moving to arrange documents on the side table. As she organized papers, she deliberately positioned herself near David's phone when it rang again. Wei, David answered in Mandarin, then switched to Arabic when he recognized the caller. Naam Sheikh Omar. Elena continued her task while listening intently. Sheikh Omar was explaining something about the American technology transfer protocols and ensuring complete subsidiary control. Her blood turned to ice as she understood the true meaning behind the corporate jargon. "Is there anything else?" she asked Marcus, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. Marcus was absorbed in reviewing figures with David. "Just keep the coffee fresh. This meeting could run for hours." As Elena moved toward the door, David's phone conversation shifted to French, discussing l'élo de transfer technologique with someone who was clearly coordinating the legal aspects of the deal. The pieces clicked together in her mind with terrifying clarity. "Mr. Sterling," she said quietly, "perhaps you should have your legal team pay special attention to the subsidiary transfer clauses in paragraph 12.3. The room fell silent. David's eyebrows shot up, and Marcus turned to stare at her with surprise. "Excuse me." Marcus's voice carried curiosity rather than anger. "What do you know about contract law?" Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. "I simply noticed that the Arabic text in that section doesn't exactly match the English translation. Small discrepancies can sometimes be significant." The audacity of it hung in the air. Marcus rose from his chair, all 6 feet of him, radiating the confident authority that had built his company. "You read Arabic, among other languages," Elena admitted, her facade of simple efficiency cracking slightly. "I couldn't help but notice some concerning terminology while serving your previous meetings." Marcus felt the world shift slightly. The quiet waitress, who'd been invisible for months, had just revealed linguistic skills that could impact a $12 billion deal. "What kind of concerning terminology?" he asked, his business instincts suddenly sharp and focused. Elena glanced at David, who was watching her with undisguised suspicion, then back at Marcus. "The kind that suggests your technology patents would be transferred to Middle Eastern subsidiaries under creative interpretations of international law." David's phone buzzed with an urgent text. He glanced at it and paused. "Marcus Sheikh Omar is in the lobby with his legal team. They're ready to finalize everything now." Marcus looked between the contract, David's worried expression, and Elena's composed face. "David, give us 5 minutes." But Marcus, they're expecting 5 minutes. After David reluctantly left, Marcus circled the table to face Elena directly. "Tell me exactly what you think you discovered." Elena took a deep breath, knowing her next words would either save his company or destroy her carefully constructed new life. Paragraph 12.3 allows Al-Zahara Investment Group to transfer your AI patents to subsidiary companies in countries that don't recognize American intellectual property protections. Once transferred, they can manufacture and sell your technology without paying you another cent. Marcus felt cold dread creeping up his spine. "And you know this how?" "Because I've seen this exact contract language before," Elena said quietly. "It was used to destroy 3 American tech companies in the past 2 years. The victims thought they were getting investment partners. Instead, they got robbed legally." "Who are you?" Marcus demanded, studying her with new intensity. Elena met his gaze steadily. "Someone who knows that in about 10 minutes, Sheikh Omar Al-Zahra is going to offer you everything you've ever wanted, and I might be the only person in this building who understands what he's really taking in return." Marcus Sterling stared at Elena, his analytical mind racing through possibilities. "You're telling me that the most prestigious investment group in the Middle East is planning to steal my company?" "I'm telling you to read paragraph 123 very carefully," Elena replied, moving to the contract and pointing to specific lines. "This clause here in Arabic translates to irrevocable technology transfer upon subsidiary activation. But the English version says collaborative technology sharing for mutual benefit." Marcus leaned over the document, acutely aware of Elena's proximity and the subtle scent of her perfume. "The English sounds harmless. That's the point. In international law, Arabic takes precedence in Middle Eastern courts when there's a translation dispute. If they activate subsidiaries in Qatar or Saudi Arabia, your patents transfer immediately and permanently." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. They're using semantic manipulation to commit legal theft. Exactly. And once they have your military AI technology, they can sell it to hostile governments while you face prosecution for technology leaks you never authorized. Marcus straightened, studying Elena with growing amazement and attraction. The shy waitress had vanished. replaced by someone who clearly understood complex international law. How do you know so much about corporate espionage? Elena hesitated, clearly weighing how much to reveal. I used to work in international mergers and acquisitions before circumstances forced me to start over. What kind of circumstances? The kind that involved discovering your own firm was facilitating exactly these types of fraudulent deals. Marcus felt pieces clicking together. You were a lawyer, corporate attorney specializing in international technology transfers. I also have an MBA in global finance and speak 6 languages fluently. Elena's professional mask slipped slightly. I was very good at my job until I realized what my job actually was. The conference room door opened and David returned, looking frazzled. Marcus Sheikh Omar is getting impatient. His legal team wants to begin the signing ceremony immediately. Marcus glanced at Elena, then back at David. Tell them we need 30 more minutes for final review. 30 minutes? David's voice pitched higher. They've been planning this for months. If we delay now, then they'll wait, Marcus said firmly, or they'll leave. Either way, we're not signing anything until our legal team reviews every translation. David shot Elena a suspicious look. Marcus, what's going on? You were ready to sign an hour ago. An hour ago, I didn't know there were translation discrepancies in the contract. Translation discrepancies? David's confusion was obvious. The Alzara Group provided certified translations. Their reputation is impeccable. Elena stepped forward slightly. Mr. Chen, have you personally verified the Arabic translations, or are you relying on their certified versions? David's face flushed with irritation. I don't speak Arabic. That's why we use certified translators. Who provided the certified translators? Elena asked quietly. The Alzara Group, naturally. They have their own legal team. For David stopped mid-sentence as the implications dawned on him. Marcus felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. They provided their own translators for a contract that benefits them. That's standard practice in international deals, David said weakly. Elena's expression remained neutral, but Marcus caught the flicker of sympathy in her eyes. It's standard when all parties trust each other completely. Less standard when billions of dollars are at stake. Marcus's phone buzzed with an urgent call from his head of legal. He answered quickly, speaking in rapid English, while Elena listened with obvious understanding. Sarah, I need you to bring an independent Arabic translator to the office immediately. Yes, I know Sheikh Omar is waiting. No, we're not signing anything until every word is verified by our own people. He hung up and found Elena watching him with something that looked like approval. You're taking a significant risk, she said. If Alzara Group is legitimate, they'll be insulted by your lack of trust. And if they're not legitimate, then you just saved your company and possibly your life. David ran his hands through his hair nervously. Marcus, this is insane. The Alzara Group has invested in dozens of American companies successfully. Why would they suddenly start committing fraud? Elena and Marcus exchanged glances. David Marcus said carefully. Which companies has Alzara invested in recently? TechFlow Solutions, Quantum Dynamics, and Advanced AI Systems, David rattled off proudly. All successful partnerships. Elena's face went pale. Mr. Chen, you might want to check the current status of those companies. What do you mean? I mean, call their CEOs and ask how their partnerships are working out. David's confident expression wavered. He pulled out his phone and dialed TechFlow's main number. After several minutes of transfers and holds, his face went white. TechFlow Solutions filed for bankruptcy 3 months ago, he whispered. Their CEO says Alzara activated subsidiary clauses and transferred all their patents to Qatar-based companies. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus felt a mixture of rage and gratitude as he realized how close he'd come to destroying everything he'd built. Elena, he said quietly, you just saved my company. Not yet, she replied. Sheikh Omar's team is still here, and they're not going to leave quietly when they realize their plan failed. Men who orchestrate $12 billion frauds don't typically accept defeat gracefully. Marcus moved closer to her, drawn by her intelligence and the undeniable chemistry sparking between them. What do you suggest? Elena's eyes met his, and he saw calculation mixed with something warmer. We need to document everything and contact the FBI before they can destroy evidence. But first, you need to decide if you trust me enough to let me help you catch them. Why would you want to help me? Elena's professional composure cracked slightly, revealing vulnerability underneath. Because watching you work these past months, I've seen that you're one of the few CEOs who actually cares about your employees in your country. You don't deserve to be destroyed by people like Sheikh Omar. Marcus stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time. The simple uniform couldn't hide her intelligence or the elegant strength in her bearing. Who are you really, Elena? Before she could answer, the conference room door burst open. Sheikh Omar Al. Zara entered with 3 men in expensive suits, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Mr. Sterling, Sheikh Omar said smoothly, I hope you're ready to make history. My legal team is eager to finalize our partnership. Marcus felt Elena tense beside him. The game was about to begin, and everything depended on how well they could play it. Sheikh Omar Al-Zara commanded attention the moment he entered the room. Tall and distinguished with silver threading through his black hair, he moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to closing billion-dollar deals. His entourage included 2 lawyers and a man who was clearly security, though he wore the same expensive suit as the others. Sheikh Omar. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand while acutely aware of Elena's presence behind him. Thank you for your patience with our final review process. Of course, Omar replied, his handshake firm and his English accent impeccable. Due diligence is the mark of a careful businessman. I trust everything meets your satisfaction. Marcus glanced meaningfully at Elena, who had seamlessly returned to her role as invisible staff, arranging papers at the side table. Actually, we've discovered some questions about the translation accuracy in certain clauses. Omar's smile remained fixed, but Marcus caught the micro-expression of irritation that flashed across his face. Translation questions? I assure you, our legal team employs only the most qualified, certified translators. I'm sure they do, Marcus replied smoothly. However, our legal counsel insists on independent verification for all foreign language contracts. Company policy. Elena moved closer to the refreshment table, positioning herself where she could overhear while appearing to focus on her duties. Her heart raced as she recognized the subtle shift in Omar's demeanor. The predator, realizing his prey, might not be as helpless as expected. Perhaps we could address specific concerns, suggested Dr. Khalil Mansour, Omar's lead lawyer. I personally oversaw every translation to ensure absolute accuracy. David, still shaken by his conversation with TechFlow Solutions, spoke up nervously. We are particularly interested in paragraph 12.3 regarding subsidiary technology transfers. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Elena watched Omar's reflection in the polished conference table surface, noting how his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Ah, yes, Omar said carefully. The collaborative technology sharing provisions, quite standard for international partnerships of this scope. Elena's phone, set to silent mode, buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it discreetly and felt her blood run cold. The message was in Arabic. The woman is listening. Eliminate the problem. Moving with practiced stealth, Elena slipped the phone back into her pocket and continued arranging documents. But her mind raced. Someone in Omar's team had noticed her unusual attention to their conversation. Marcus, meanwhile, was studying the contract with new eyes. Sheikh Omar, this clause about irrevocable technology transfer upon subsidiary activation. Could you explain how that differs from the English version about collaborative sharing? The silence stretched for several heartbeats too long. Omar's lawyers exchanged glances that Elena recognized as silent communication between conspirators. I believe there may be some confusion about technical legal terminology, Dr. Mansour said smoothly. Perhaps if we reviewed the documents together, that won't be necessary, Marcus interrupted. Our independent translator should arrive within the hour. We can clarify everything then. Omar's mask of polite patience began to slip. Mr. Sterling, surely you understand that my schedule is quite demanding. Delaying this signing could complicate our timeline significantly. Elena felt the walls closing in. Omar's security man had positioned himself near the door, and she noticed him speaking quietly into a nearly invisible earpiece. Whatever was happening, it was escalating beyond contract negotiations. Marcus, David whispered urgently, maybe we should consider. The conference room phone rang, interrupting David mid-sentence. Marcus answered with a sharp sterling. Elena couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Marcus's face go pale as he listened. After a moment, he hung up and looked directly at Omar. That was the FBI, Marcus said quietly. They're investigating reports of corporate espionage involving technology transfers to Middle Eastern subsidiaries. Apparently, several American companies have filed complaints about fraudulent investment schemes. The mask finally dropped from Omar's face completely. Mr. Sterling, I hope you're not suggesting I'm not suggesting anything, Marcus replied. I'm simply informing you that federal agents will be here within 30 minutes to examine all contracts and documentation related to our potential partnership. Elena saw Omar's security man touch his earpiece again and speak in rapid Arabic. Execute Contingency Plan 3. Eliminate all witnesses. Her blood turned to ice. These weren't just white-collar criminals. They were prepared to use violence to protect their operation. Moving with careful precision, Elena approached Marcus under the pretense of refilling his coffee. As she leaned close to pour, she whispered in barely audible Spanish, Están armados, plenen matnos. They're armed. They plan to kill us. Marcus's hand stilled on his coffee cup, but he gave no other sign he'd heard her warning. Instead, he looked up at Omar with a businessman's smile. While we wait for the federal agents, perhaps we could discuss your other successful American partnerships. Omar's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Well, David mentioned TechFlow Solutions, quantum dynamics, and advanced AI systems. I'd love to hear about their experiences with the Alzara Group. Elena continued serving coffee while watching the security man's hand drift toward his jacket. She needed to warn Marcus more explicitly, but with Omar's team monitoring every movement, one wrong word could trigger violence immediately. Instead, she deliberately knocked over the sugar bowl, sending packets scattering across the conference table and onto the floor. As everyone's attention focused on the clumsy accident, she caught Marcus's eye and mouthed silently, "Gun!" Marcus's training in crisis management kicked in. Without changing his expression, he pressed the building security alert button hidden beneath the conference table. "I'm so sorry," Elena said loudly, kneeling to collect the scattered sugar packets. "How clumsy of me." "Perhaps," Omar said, his voice carrying new menace, "we should conclude our business more privately, away from unnecessary distractions." Elena felt the security man's attention focus on her like a laser. She'd been identified as a threat, and Omar's team was preparing to eliminate everyone who could expose their operation. Marcus stood slowly, projecting calm authority while his mind raced through escape scenarios. "Gentlemen, I think it's best if we wait for federal agents to arrive. I'm sure they'll be very interested in hearing about your innovative partnership structures." Omar's smile turned predatory. "Mr. Sterling, I'm afraid federal agents won't be arriving today. You see, some situations require more direct solutions." Music. The security man's hand moved inside his jacket just as the conference room doors burst open. 3 FBI agents in tactical gear flooded in, weapons drawn. Federal agents, nobody move. Elena collapsed against the conference table in relief, as Omar's team realized their elaborate scheme had crumbled. But as handcuffs clicked around Omar's wrists, she caught the Sheikh's final words spoken in Arabic with chilling precision. "Find Elena al-Rashid. This isn't over." Her blood froze as she realized her carefully constructed identity had been blown. Omar knew exactly who she was and why she'd been able to expose his plan so effectively. Marcus was beside her instantly, his hand steady on her arm. "Elena, are you all right?" She looked up at him, seeing concern and something deeper in his gray eyes. "Marcus, there's something else I need to tell you about why I really knew so much about their operation." "Later," he said firmly. "Right now, we're both safe. That's what matters." But Elena knew their safety was temporary. Omar's network was vast, and his threat had been very specific. The shy waitress named Elena Martinez was about to disappear forever. The question was whether Elena al-Rashid would survive what came next. The FBI safe house in Queens felt like a fortress and a prison simultaneously. Marcus Sterling paced the hardwood floors while Elena sat at the kitchen table, translating documents the federal agents had seized from Omar's hotel suite. 3 days had passed since the conference room confrontation, and the investigation was revealing the true scope of the Al-Zahara Group's operation. They've stolen technology from 17 American companies in the past 4 years, Agent Sarah Martinez announced, entering with fresh coffee and manila folders. Your quick thinking saved not just sterling tech, but potentially prevented a massive security breach affecting military AI systems. Marcus glanced at Elena, who looked exhausted despite her composed exterior. What about Omar's threat? Are we safe here? The Al-Zahra Group is more than just corporate espionage, Agent Martinez replied grimly. We've discovered connections to arms trafficking and technology sales to hostile governments. Omar won't give up easily, especially since Elena can identify key players in their network. Elena looked up from the documents, her dark eyes reflecting strain. There's something else you need to know. Omar called me Elena Al-Rashid for a reason. Marcus felt his world shift again. Al-Rashid. That's not your real name either. It's my birth name, Elena said quietly. Elena Al-Rashid was a prominent international lawyer until she discovered her own firm was facilitating these technology thefts. When I tried to expose them, they destroyed my career and threatened my life. Elena Martinez was my witness protection identity. Agent Martinez leaned forward. Elena, we need you to explain exactly what you discovered about your former firm. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she reached for a folder. Khalil and Associates wasn't just providing legal services to the Al-Zahra Group. We were creating the fraudulent contracts, establishing the subsidiary companies, and facilitating the technology transfers. I spent 3 years unknowingly helping them steal billions in American intellectual property. Marcus sat beside her, drawn by her obvious pain. When did you realize what was happening? 18 months ago, I was reviewing contracts for a client called Quantum Dynamics. The subsidiary transfer clauses were identical to ones I drafted for other clients, but the technology being transferred was military-grade encryption software. Elena's voice grew steadier as she spoke. I started investigating and discovered that every contract I'd worked on had resulted in American companies losing their most valuable assets. What did you do? Agent Martinez asked. I copied everything. Contracts, email communications, bank transfer records. Then I confronted my boss, Dr. Khalil Mansour. Elena's laugh was bitter. He offered me a promotion and $1 million bonus to forget what I discovered. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. They tried to buy your silence. When I refused, they tried intimidation. When that failed, they tried to have me killed. Elena met Marcus's eyes and he saw the fear she'd been hiding. A car bomb destroyed my apartment in Geneva. If I hadn't been working late at the office, I would have died. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the safe house's security systems. Marcus reached for Elena's hand without thinking, surprised when she didn't pull away. The witness protection program gave me a new identity and relocated me to New York, Elena continued. But I couldn't stop thinking about all the American companies being destroyed by contracts I'd helped create. When I discovered Omar was targeting sterling tech, I knew I had to act. Agent Martinez studied Elena with professional interest. You risked everything to save a company you'd never worked for. Elena's eyes found Marcus's again. I risked everything to save a man who didn't deserve to be destroyed by my mistakes. The intensity in her voice made Marcus's pulse quicken. Despite everything, the danger, the deception, the impossible circumstances, he was falling for this brilliant, courageous woman who'd sacrificed her safety to protect his dream. Elena, he said softly, you saved my company and possibly my life. You don't owe me anything, don't I? She turned to face him fully. I helped create the weapons they used against you. Every fraudulent contract, every stolen patent, every destroyed American business, I made that possible. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. You also made it possible to stop them. Agent Martinez's radio crackled with urgent communication. After a brief conversation, she turned back to them with a grim expression. We've got a problem. Omar made bail through diplomatic channels. He's officially been declared persona non grata and ordered to leave the country. But Marcus prompted. But 3 of his associates are still in New York, and we've intercepted communications, suggesting they plan to eliminate Elena before leaving. Elena went pale. How long do we have? Our surveillance suggests they've located this safe house. We need to move you both immediately. Marcus stood, pulling Elena to her feet. Where? There's a secure federal facility upstate. You'll be completely protected until we can. The lights went out. In the darkness, Marcus heard Agent Martinez curse and reach for her radio. All units, we have a breach at the safe house. Repeat, we have a hostile breach. Elena's hand found Marcus's in the darkness, her fingers intertwining with his. Marcus, if something happens to me, you need to know nothing's going to happen to you, he said fiercely, pulling her closer. The sound of breaking glass came from the front of the house, followed by shouted commands in Arabic. Agent Martinez pushed them toward the back exit, her weapon drawn. Move now. Marcus wrapped his arm around Elena's waist, guiding her through the dark hallway toward the rear of the house. Behind them, he could hear multiple voices coordinating a systematic search. The garage, Agent Martinez whispered. There's an armored vehicle. We can. A gunshot echoed through the house, and Agent Martinez stumbled. Elena caught her arm, steadying her as blood spread across the agent's shoulder. I'm fine, Martinez gasped. Keep moving. Marcus felt Elena's body trembling against his, but her voice remained steady. There's a window in the laundry room. We can reach the neighbor's yard. How do you know that? I memorized every exit the first day we arrived. Even in mortal danger, Elena's intelligence amazed him. Marcus helped Agent Martinez, while Elena led them through the dark house with confident precision. Behind them, the voices grew closer. They reached the laundry room just as flashlight beams began sweeping the hallway behind them. Elena quietly opened the window while Marcus helped the wounded agent. You first, Elena whispered to Martinez. No, you're the primary target. Go. Elena hesitated, clearly torn between self-preservation and protecting the injured agent. Marcus made the decision for her, lifting her toward the window. I'm not losing you, he said quietly. Not after everything we've been through. As Elena slipped through the window, their eyes met in the dim light filtering from outside. In that moment, Marcus realized that somewhere between corporate espionage and federal safe houses, he'd fallen completely in love with her. Marcus, she whispered urgently from outside. Hurry, he helped Agent Martinez through the window, then followed just as footsteps reached the laundry room. They ran across the neighbor's yard, staying low and moving toward the street where backup federal vehicles were arriving with sirens wailing. But as they reached safety, Marcus caught Elena's expression in the flashing emergency lights. She looked relieved but also resigned, like someone preparing for an inevitable goodbye. Elena, what is it? She turned to him with tears in her eyes. Marcus, there's something else, something that changes everything between us. The federal courthouse in Manhattan buzzed with activity as Elena prepared to testify before a grand jury investigating the Alzara Group's international fraud network. Marcus sat in the witness waiting area, watching her review her notes with the focused intensity he'd come to admire and love over the past week. You don't have to do this, he said quietly, moving to sit beside her. Agent Martinez said they have enough evidence from the documents to proceed without your testimony. Elena looked up from her legal pad, her dark eyes reflecting determination mixed with fear. Marcus, without my testimony explaining how the contracts were structured, they might only get convictions for fraud. With my testimony, they can prove conspiracy to commit espionage and technology theft. The difference is 5 years versus life sentences. Marcus reached for her hand, marveling at how natural the gesture had become. And the difference for you is continued witness protection versus having your real identity exposed to every news outlet in the country. I know the risks. Do you? Marcus studied her face, seeing the woman he'd fallen in love with beneath the brave exterior. Once you testify as Elena Al-Rashid, former attorney for Khalil and Associates, your life as Elena Martinez disappears forever. Omar's associates will spend the rest of their lives trying to find you. Elena's smile was sad but resolute. My life as Elena Martinez was never real anyway. It was just borrowed time. Before Marcus could respond, the door opened and Dr. Khalil Mansour entered in handcuffs, flanked by federal marshals. The man who had once been Elena's boss and mentor looked older and smaller than Marcus had expected. but his eyes burned with hatred when they fixed on Elena. "Elena al-Rashid," Khalil said in accented English, his voice carrying old affection twisted into malice. "My most promising student. I taught you everything you knew about international law, and this is how you repay me." Elena stood, facing the man who had destroyed her life with dignity that took Marcus's breath away. "You taught me to recognize justice, Dr. Mansour. I'm simply practicing what you preached before you forgot your own principles." Khalil's laugh was bitter. "Principles. Elena, we were making millions while helping developing nations access technology that American companies hoarded selfishly. We were leveling the playing field. We were stealing," Elena replied firmly. "And you know it. I know that you were living in a penthouse apartment in Geneva, driving a Maserati, and earning more money than most people see in a lifetime. All of that disappeared the moment you decided to develop a conscience." Marcus felt rage building as he watched Khalil try to manipulate Elena with reminders of her former lifestyle. But Elena's response surprised them both. "You're right," she said calmly. "I had everything money could buy, but I didn't have the ability to sleep at night, knowing that my legal expertise was being used to destroy innocent people's dreams." She gestured toward Marcus. "Do you know what Marcus Sterling was doing the night before you planned to steal his company? He was in his office at 2 a.m., personally reviewing employee benefit packages to make sure his staff could afford their children's medical care. This is the man you wanted to destroy for profit." Khalil's eyes shifted to Marcus with cold assessment. "Ah, yes, the idealistic young American. Tell me, Mr. Sterling, are you prepared for what loving Elena al-Rashid will cost you?" Marcus stepped closer to Elena, putting his arm around her protectively. "I'm prepared for anything. Are you prepared for the fact that she's worth approximately $400 million? The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Elena's face went white, and she turned to stare at Khalil with horror. "What did you just say?" Marcus asked quietly. Khalil smiled with malicious satisfaction. "Didn't she tell you? Elena al-Rashid isn't just a brilliant attorney. She's the sole heir to the al-Rashid shipping fortune. Her father's business empire is worth nearly $500 million, all of it sitting in Swiss accounts, waiting for her to claim it." Marcus felt the floor shift beneath his feet. "Elena." Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. "Marcus, I can explain. The only reason she was working for our firm," Khalil continued, clearly enjoying their shock, "was because her father wanted her to understand international business before inheriting his empire. She was never a regular employee. She was an AYS playing at being a lawyer." Marcus stepped back slightly, his mind reeling. "You're a billionaire." "I was supposed to be," Elena said, tears forming in her eyes. "But when I discovered what Khalil's firm was really doing, I couldn't claim money that had been earned through association with criminals. I've been living on witness protection stipends because I refused to access funds that might be connected to stolen technology." The complexity of her sacrifice hit Marcus like a tidal wave. She hadn't just given up her career and safety. She'd given up a fortune to expose the truth. "Elena," he said softly, "why didn't you tell me?" Because I knew how you'd react," she replied, her voice breaking. "You built your company from nothing. You're proud of earning everything yourself. How could I tell you that I was born into wealth beyond anything you've achieved?" Khalil laughed cruelly. "She's right to worry, Mr. Sterling. Can your masculine pride handle being with a woman who could buy your little company a dozen times over?" Marcus felt anger surge through him, not at Elena, but at Khalil's attempt to destroy what they'd built together. "Dr. Mansour, you clearly don't understand what kind of man Elena chose to love." He turned to Elena, cupping her face in his hands. "Do you really think I care about money? Elena, you gave up $400 million to save my company and countless others. You're the most selfless, courageous person I've ever met." "But the difference between us," Elena began. "The difference between us," Marcus interrupted, "is that you're better than me in every way that matters. You're smarter, braver, and more principled. If anything, I should be worried about whether I'm good enough for you." Elena's tears spilled over as she saw the sincerity in his eyes. "Marcus, I love you. But my money, my family's business, it complicates everything." "No," Marcus said firmly, pulling her closer. It doesn't complicate anything. We'll figure it out together. The federal marshals began moving Khalil toward the door, but he called back one final threat. Elena, claiming your inheritance means revealing your location to every one of Omar's associates worldwide. Your father's fortune comes with a target on your back. As the door closed behind Khalil, Elena collapsed against Marcus, overwhelmed by the weight of decisions that would define the rest of their lives. Marcus, she whispered, what if he's right? What if loving me puts you in constant danger? Marcus held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her hair and feeling the rightness of her in his arms. Elena, I've been in danger since the moment I met you. Danger of falling completely in love with someone I can't live without. She pulled back to look at him, hope and fear wearing in her expression. What are we going to do? Marcus smiled, the businessman in him already forming plans. We're going to testify, put these criminals away forever, and then we're going to build something beautiful together. Your money, my company, our future. We'll figure out the details as we go. And if Omar's network comes after us, then they'll discover that protecting the woman I love is something I'm very, very good at. Whereas, and as Elena smiled through her tears, Marcus realized that every challenge they'd faced had only made him more certain of one thing. Elena al-Rashid was worth fighting for, regardless of the consequences. 6 months later, the Sterling Foundation's inaugural gala filled the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel with New York's most influential business leaders, philanthropists, and technology innovators. Marcus Sterling stood at the podium, looking out at an audience that included FBI Director Chen, several federal judges who had presided over the Al-Zara Group trials, and dozens of CEOs whose companies had been saved by Elena's courageous testimony. Tonight we celebrate not just the launch of the Sterling Foundation's Global Education Initiative, Marcus began, his voice carrying easily through the elegant space, but the power of one person's courage to change the world. In the front row, Elena sat at a table with Agent Martinez, who had recovered fully from her gunshot wound and been promoted to head the FBI's International Corporate Crimes Division. Elena wore an elegant navy gown that Marcus had chosen specifically because it matched her eyes, and she looked every inch the successful businesswoman she'd always been beneath her disguises. The Sterling Foundation's mission is simple, Marcus continued. We provide technology, education, and resources to developing nations through legitimate partnerships that respect intellectual property and foster genuine economic growth. We believe that innovation should lift everyone up, not tear anyone down. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus only had eyes for Elena. Over the past 6 months, they'd worked together to transform both Sterling Tech and Elena's inherited shipping empire into forces for positive change. The Al-Rashid Shipping Company now focused exclusively on humanitarian aid transport, while Sterling Tech had become a leader in ethical international technology transfer. But none of this would have been possible, Marcus said, his voice growing warmer, without the woman who taught me that true strength isn't about building walls around your success. It's about using your success to build bridges for others. Elena's cheeks flushed as the audience's attention turned to her. She'd never fully adjusted to public recognition after years of hiding, but Marcus loved watching her grow more confident in her own skin. Elena al-Rashid, Marcus continued, former attorney, whistleblower, heirs, and the woman who saved not just my company, but my understanding of what it means to be truly successful. The applause grew louder, and Elena smiled, the brilliant, unguarded smile that Marcus had fallen in love with during their first conversation about fraudulent contracts. Elena, Marcus said, his carefully prepared speech forgotten as he looked at the woman who'd changed his life. Would you join me up here? Elena's eyes widened in surprise, but she rose gracefully and made her way to the podium. When she reached Marcus, he took her hands in his, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. 6 months ago, Marcus said, speaking now to Elena rather than the audience, I thought I knew what I wanted from life. Success, wealth, recognition, all the things that look impressive on paper. Elena's eyes sparkled with unshed tears as she realized what was happening. But you taught me that real success isn't about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process of achieving it. You made me a better man, a better leader, and a better human being. Marcus released one of her hands to reach into his jacket pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box that made several audience members gasp with delight. Elena Al-Rashid, he said, dropping to one knee as gasps and applause filled the ballroom. You saved my company, exposed international criminals, and sacrificed everything for justice. But most importantly, you showed me what it means to love someone completely and without reservation. Elena's tears spilled over as Marcus opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald engagement ring surrounded by diamonds. Will you marry me? Marcus asked, his voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom. Will you build this crazy, beautiful, complicated life with me? Elena looked down at the man who'd stood by her through federal investigations, death threats, and the revelation of her hidden fortune. The man who'd never once made her feel like her money was more important than her heart. Marcus Sterling, she said, her voice shaking with emotion and joy. You are the most stubborn, brilliant, protective man I've ever met. You challenged me to be brave when I wanted to hide, and you loved me when I couldn't love myself. The audience held its breath as Elena paused, her smile growing radiant. Yes, she said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll build this beautiful life with you. And yes, I'll spend the rest of my life showing you that the smartest thing you ever did was trust a waitress who spoke too many languages for her own good. The ballroom erupted in applause as Marcus slipped the ring onto Elena's finger and stood to kiss her properly. As their lips met, Elena whispered against his mouth, You realize this means you're stuck with me and my $400 million, right? Marcus laughed, pulling her closer. Elena Al-Rashid Sterling has a nice ring to it, and just think of all the good we can do with $800 million and 2 companies. $800 million? Elena asked in surprise. Sterling Tech IPO went through this morning, Marcus said with a grin. Apparently, successfully fighting international corporate espionage is very good for business. Elena's laugh was pure joy as she kissed him again, not caring that 800 people were watching them with delight. Later, as they danced to their first song as an engaged couple, Elena looked up at Marcus with the mischievous expression that never failed to make his heart race. You know, she said softly, there's something else I should probably tell you before we get married. Marcus's eyebrows rose in mock alarm. Please tell me you're not secretly related to any other international crime families. Nothing that dramatic, Elena assured him, then paused with perfect comedic timing. I just thought you should know that I also speak Italian, Portuguese, and Russian. That makes 9 languages total, not 6. Marcus stopped dancing and stared at her. 9 languages? I may have undersold myself slightly when we first met. Marcus threw back his head and laughed, spinning Elena around the dance floor. Elena Al-Rashid, you are going to keep me surprised for the rest of my life, aren't you? Count on it, Mr. Sterling. Count on it. As they danced beneath crystal chandeliers, surrounded by friends and family who'd watched them fight for their love against impossible odds, Marcus realized that the best partnerships in business and in life were built on trust, shared values, and the courage to face any challenge together. And if Elena happened to speak 12 languages by their first anniversary, well, that would just make life more interesting. The end. 6 months later, the Sterling Al-Rashid Foundation had opened technology centers in 12 countries. Omar Al-Zara and his associates were serving life sentences in federal prison, and Elena had indeed added 3 more languages to her repertoire. She claimed it was for business purposes, but Marcus suspected she just enjoyed watching his expression when she casually translated yet another conversation he thought was private. Their wedding was held at the Manhattan courthouse, where Elena had testified with Agent Martinez as maid of honor and Judge Chen officiating. Elena wore her grandmother's pearls and carried jasmine flowers. Marcus wore his father's cufflinks and cried during the vows. They honeymooned in Switzerland, where Elena finally claimed her inheritance and immediately donated half of it to international literacy programs. When reporters asked why, she simply said, "Because knowledge should never be hoarded. It should be shared." Marcus Sterling had thought he was building a technology company. Instead, he'd found a partner who helped him build a legacy.